I'm greatly concerned, dear one, with the everyday details of living. I awoke, it's 4 o'clock odd, when I awoke, as you can see from the time on these recordings. And I had a certain stress, a concern on my mind, a sort of health concern, actually. And I thought, no, this is no good. I can't rest in my mind with this on attacking my thoughts, so to speak. So I did a bit of my triangular breathing, and of course that, as I say, doesn't necessarily burn through it. I thought, well, and then I was blessed by, I heard a message, reminder come on my phone. It's the middle of the night. You think, well, who could possibly be texting me this time of night? And I checked my phone, and, well, there's no visible text on it. I don't know why the reminder came. But I've now got my phone, in my hand and up and running, so to speak. It was on already, of course, or I wouldn't have got the message. I still didn't get the message, but the point is it got me into, I think I'll just check my next recording to be prepared for publishing, as according to this number here on this recording. And I've rolled off this last part B, something I felt was necessary to interpret part A. And now I'm flowing. Rightly or wrongly, you might think, but I feel God is speaking through me. And it's so worthwhile. From my point of view, you understand. You may think this is extremely childish and unrealistic, trivial, in a very secular understanding of things. But from my understanding, it's not, and it's rescued me in the situation. I do this sort of thing very often when I'm confronted with not being able to take control of the mind. I distract it with holiness. I think that's the way I would put it. A colourful way of putting it, isn't it? To distract it with holiness. I do something that I know will preoccupy my mind in a much happier frame of mind. Now you may say this is putting yourself in a fool's paradise, Marshall. You should continue to preoccupy yourself with whatever the stress was, else you might not put it right. Well, I don't see myself as that sovereign in my life. I'm not clear I put things right. The good things that have happened to me have been inexplicable, not of my own doing, but in a secular sense by good fortune. Being born into the parents I had, which you might see were a problem in a worldly sense, but I found to be a great blessing, although a difficulty in some ways in childhood, but responsible for what I value now. So it's my frame of mind in accepting or rejecting my situation that seems to dictate my welfare and blessing. So I go for a frame of mind that seems to be the greatest blessing. Now you may find that being secular seems to be to you the greatest blessing. Then you should continue in such. And if life turns to custard, and I don't mean lovely by that, but I mean absolute chaos and trouble and sadness, then you will want to find an alternative way. Dear one, life so often does turn this way. millions of people have so often made them turn to taking command, to taking a life of trust and faith as a solution. And they found it to be a solution. Now, you may say there are many who have found it not to be a solution. Yes, I agree, love. But that's how I understand these changes of heart, so to speak, come about. Great difficulty makes us reach out where we would not otherwise have reached out. Having said that, you know that my conversion was not as I understood it in great difficulty. Superficially it was. I didn't have the person that I was in love with to stay with me. And I couldn't continue with the masters because I was running out of cash. My desire was to do a job locally that would be a blessing. And you could say the difficulties were leading me to look more deeply into the problems of life and how to live. And so when this book, fortuitously you would say as a secular person, perhaps, or perhaps not, came into my hand, Paramhansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi, I found, of course, it preoccupied me with a person who believed in his view of God, an Eastern view, of course, the Hindu view, the ashram guru meditative path of enlightenment as he would see things. And becoming familiarized with his relationship to God as he sees it, and the spiritual, I found I wanted God to exist. You could say my view of God. And I think that's very important. Not particularly Paramhansa's view of God, the author of the book, but my view of God, to be acceptable to me. And it was. And I suddenly realized I wanted God to exist. Well, of course, to have that situation, you'd have to be trusting that God existed, because you can't know God as a child. You don't have the comprehension to grasp it. So I chose to see God in a certain way. But I chose to see God not so much as Paramhansa sees spiritual enlightenment, but according to the Jesus story. Why did I go down that path instead of following Paramhansa for 100%? Probably because I come from a different culture to him. In a Hindu culture, he came his way. In a decaying Christian culture of the West, I came in mine. You can only come in your way, dear one. In fact, that's why God has you in your way, perhaps. And then it's a pragmatic decision for the secular. Am I better off following this path or not? And in self-interest, I chose this way. And by the grace of God, I think it is the case. I've been so blessed accordingly. So then it's a no-brainer, isn't it? I continue in the path because it's blessing me. Heaps. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.